Well, good morning to you, viewers. Let's begin what's trending. As Nigeria grapples with one of the most devastating periods of insecurity in its history, with soldiers being killed, women and children abducted, and communities razed to the ground across the Northeast, a new and disturbing video has emerged on social media that takes the horror to a whole new level. The footage shows what appears to be dozens of children and young teenagers dressed in Nigerian Army camouflage uniforms, helmets, and boots performing military drills. The young recruits, many in oversized, ill-fitting uniforms, are lined up in formation. The post sharing the video alleges the uniforms belong to slain Nigerian soldiers. This is heartbreaking to see. These are children dressed in uniforms reportedly belonging to Nigerian soldiers, presumably killed in battle. This image alone should shake every Nigerian to their core. Commentators have linked the footage to Boko Haram's long-documented practice of forcibly recruiting children, with some pointing to the Al-Majirinsi street child system in northern Nigeria as a key recruitment tool for terrorist groups. Well, research shows the children in the video are from the Ngoshe axis of Goza local government area of Borno State, which recently saw the kidnapping of 100 women and children. Well, Borno State Commissioner for Women Affairs, Zuwaria Gambo, has stated that these may well be children abducted during the state's recent attacks. Young boys torn from their families, stripped from their innocence, and handed the uniforms of fallen Nigerian soldiers. This is not just a security crisis. It is a humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in plain sight, a stark reminder that the fight against insurgency in the Northeast is far from over. We also saw a troubling video last week showing a group of young boys wielding large guns slung across their backs. The video shared on X shows the children standing alongside suspected terrorists in full military gear, with the boys appearing as young as 9 or 10 years old. The footage has shocked many Nigerians on social media, raising serious questions about how these weapons were obtained and what children so young are doing in the company of armed militants. Meanwhile, controversial cleric Sheikh Ahmad Gumi has indicted the federal government in a recent interview, saying that the government officials and security forces are not only aware of terrorist hideouts, but know the terrorists by name. Let's take a look.
Every terrorist by name and by location. I don't go yellow. I don't go to the terrorists alone. I call the police, I call the security, everybody. I will go to the MES, another place. In fact, when we went to one terrorist, I went with, even with women with me. Go to the bush. But when you didn't see it before the camera was not concentrated on it. I don't go hello.
Gumi has repeatedly called for dialogue with terrorists, and in this interview, he reiterated that peace talks are the only way forward, while also calling out the military for mismanaging what he describes as trillions of Nigeria's defense budget. Sheikh Gumi has never been shy about speaking his mind, but for many Nigerians, the more pressing question is this: if the government truly knows every terrorist by name, why are communities still being razed to the ground. Before I take more security topics, I'd like your analysis starting from, the children that we saw in that video. A shocking video of these children wearing, slain Nigerian soldiers' uniforms, reportedly.
This is very, very sad, and that's a big issue this morning. This is our future, and this is the price of war that we often perhaps don't look at or talk about. Let me start from the end, and I'll go back. There's a handover protocol between the Nigerian military and UNICEF, whereby rescued children like this are not treated like criminals, but they are treated as victims of war, especially those who, whether through kidnapping by insurgents, are now made, compelled, forced, many times against their will, to fight in this manner. And so there's a handover protocol in place for that, to say and repeatedly say that these boys, look at their faces, are victims of war. Now, this is why we keep on calling for urgent attention to be paid to tackling insecurity, and why we keep asking questions as to the whereabouts or the release of these people who are kidnapped, especially where we see young children like that. Because if not, beyond the funding of terrorism, is that when we kidnap these people, we're going to recycle and have these young innocent children being indoctrinated or pushed into a life of criminality against their will. No Nigerian child should be involved in combat. We are signed to the Child's Right of 2003. We have the Child's Rights of 2003. We are signed to the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of a Child. And so every child's right ought to be protected. If we don't get the insurgents, we will continue to see cases like this. This is why there's a continuous push for the soul of our future, because this is our future here. If we're not talking about children being out of school, if we're not talking about children being malnourished, last week you talk about our young people who are, there's a big substance misuse in our nation. We are selling the soul of our future. Yes. This is what we see before us. And that's why there's a continuous FOM call for security agents to go after these criminals, these terrorists, so that not only do we safeguard our now in terms of the places and the people that they kill and kidnap, but that we also do well by the future, by safeguarding our children and ensuring that none of them will ever have to go into combat. Now, going on to Sheikh Gumi's story around, they know the terrorists, it's difficult not to believe what he's saying, Oji, because we've often talked about this, that there must be some form of complicity. Yes. It's overt in some cases, like we saw whereby intelligence, or we've seen in cases where intelligence is received and someone within the ranks leaks it. We've seen cases where there's been a repeated call for investigations around the principal actors who called back soldiers based on the fact that terrorists are going to attack the Kebbi school in minutes. We have asked these questions, yet there's a glaring, obvious silence from the government. And so it's difficult to not know that, that there is some form of complicity, including them knowing. So the gap between them knowing and the arrest is, what is the difference? Why can they not go after these people? What is it? Where do they hold these government people by the jugular, whereby they are unable to act in a way to save the Nigerian people? These are the questions. And maybe Sheikh Gumi himself has a question to answer. He must know where they are saying, because for you to make assertions like this, so they should use him as a principal witness or a principal link to the terrorists and see how they can find a way. And no negotiations. It has been recommended in the past. It has failed in many instances where it has been employed, and so no negotiations. These are criminals, these are terrorists, and the Nigerian state must be serious about dealing with them and going after them to protect our now, and very importantly, to protect our future, our children.
Our future. Very well said, Ayo. Very well said. Well, in response to the growing insecurity across northern Nigeria and the country at large, Peter Obi wrote a lengthy post on X on Monday, calling out the government. He wrote in part, "Our nation is clearly under siege, and the scale of insecurity is becoming unbearable, spreading widely all over the country, from Nasarawa, Kogi, and Benue. Residents are screaming that terrorists now flock to their farms and forests, disrupting economic activities, forcing entire villages to flee in fear in Nasarawa's Dako area alone, 14,318 civilians are now registered as internally displaced persons in Oyo State. Travelers were abducted in the dead of night along the Kishi-Igbeti Road. Their whereabouts are still unknown. In Ondo State, criminals shot at, abducted, and wounded innocent citizens. And in Kebbi State, terrorists are on a rampage, killing officers and citizens, making it the third deadliest attack this month. The wave of terror has now brazenly crept into our nation's capital, the attack in Kabwa, Abuja. Just this week, about 19 citizens were abducted from their homes, including women and children. This is yet another grim reminder that insecurity is no longer distant, but now a norm. The primary responsibility of any government is to secure the lives and property of its citizens. Yet, the response from the government in power to all the incidents has been dead silence, as if Nigerian lives no longer matter. The ruling class are instead devastatingly more preoccupied with how to snatch, grab, and run away with the next election. It is time to restore security, dignity, and hope to every corner of this nation. Well, last week, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu boldly stated that Nigeria will defeat terrorism and banditry despite the recent deadly attacks in Borno State, where over 100 women and children were kidnapped. The president made the statement on Friday, speaking during an interfaith breaking of fast with service chiefs and military heads at the State House in Abuja.
I'm so grateful to all of you, particularly the leadership of the armed forces. You've worked so hard to protect this country from marauders and keep our sovereignty. My sympathy goes to the Vice President and the entire country and many people of Borno for the incidents that occurred, and make a call to Zulum to share the pain with him. Freedom, yes, could be difficult and challenging at this period. We appreciate all the people who are facing the challenges of terrorism and banditry. We will win. Nigeria will prevail. Thank you very much.
Well, Dr. Abati, that's the commander-in-chief being optimistic. However, the attacks in Borno State have shaken the nation. Communities have been destroyed, soldiers have been killed, and over 100 women and children remain missing. A vow to defeat terrorism is welcome, but for the families still waiting for their loved ones to come home, words alone will never be enough. On one hand, we've seen Peter Obi, of course, the opposition fiercely condemning the federal government. And, of course, in one part of his statement that he did, hail the Nigerian armed forces and also tried to advocate for more, some sort of, highlights on their cause in the field, more attention for their cause in the field. Yes, absolutely. And then here we see the commander-in-chief of the armed forces saying that we will defeat terrorism, but Nigerians are waiting to see that day come.
Well, I think Mr. Peter Obi is right on all counts.
Yes.
Because his basic point is that we're focusing more on politics, while insecurity is spreading in the country. And the evidence of that is writ large. He cited the example of the attack in Ngoshi in Borno State, but there have been other examples. So when he says the country is under siege from criminal elements, he's right in that regard. And he made the point that, look, politics should not be prioritized over insecurity because, as he pointed out, Section 14 sub 2 of the 1999 Constitution, he made the point that the primary responsibility of government is the security and welfare of the people. You cannot argue with him on that score. Now the president met with security and military chiefs at IFTA the other day, Well, while commending them, he made it clear that they still have a lot more to do. And he used the opportunity to reassure them that he's going to take care of their welfare. More will be provided for them to be able to do their job. And he also used the opportunity to sell his administration by making the point that the economy is stabilizing. But I think that what the average Nigerian will be interested in interacting with military and security chiefs will be how they can do a lot more to make this environment very secure. And then you made a point about child soldiers. This slogan by UNICEF articulated